Morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Signal, where there's no gurus, no magic wands, just what actually works at selling in high-stakes environments like B2G to government and enterprise B2B. So I'm watching the news lately, and all I see is these long lines in airports in the U.S. and TSA checkpoints sometimes people taking longer than the actual flight in just getting through security. And it reminds me of, I guess, the first time that I went through pre-check. So I got my nice pre-check card and I was super excited to try it out. And I walked into the airport and I saw a lineup of about 1,000 plus people waiting for their international flights in just the regular line, right? And I look at my card and I go, I wonder how this works. I walk to the front of the line and I noticed that there's this really, really tiny line with two people just off to the left of where this 1,000-person line, and it was the pre-check line. So I showed my card, didn't even have to take off my shoes, walk through, and I'm way, way, way ahead of everybody, which is really important because it was my first trip to Europe, and it was a business trip. So I knew that I needed to make this flight, and I didn't pay for it, so I didn't have the ability to just rebook or anything like that. So it kind of makes me think is that when you're traveling for business, now I used to travel twice a month, maybe 3 times a month. I'd go everywhere from Vancouver, like 4 hours away from me, all the way to Croatia or Germany or anything that is very far away. So I would be constantly on the road, living out of a suitcase. And it was really important because at the time I didn't have any other real means to get in front of my clients. I love today, by the way, and we'll get into that. I love that I don't have to do that anymore and I get to enjoy the comfort of my own home, but that's aside. Many of my clients actually have this person in-house. So they have that 1-star person or their couple-star people that are just super connected with the industry. They know everybody, they shake hands, they get that eye contact, they have shared experiences, go to baseball games or hockey games or football games or anything like that. And they really build these strong, long-lasting relationships. And it's a really, really good practice if you're speaking with the right people. But what I've seen time and time again is that the cost of about $1,300 per business trip, I mean, that cost is totally rising all the time. But at that cost, it's incredibly costly if you're spending that time on deals that won't buy. If you're dealing with people that just really like building that relationship and like to know the vendors in their space, as opposed to actually be going into a procurement cycle, into a buying process where you can actually have the chance to win, that $1,300 adds up fast. So I know you're a business owner, you know it costs money to make money. So it's not something that's going to be difficult to do, to spend that $1,300 when you know you're going to get a sale. But if you're dealing with the wrong people, what are you going to do? What I find is it misses something. So I know of one gentleman in particular, he lives out of a suitcase literally, travels to 4 different cities a week, is at every trade show event, every industry event, shaking hands all the time. He is absolutely loved. But when he's taking a West Coast swing and he's going to all his clients there, what's happening on the East Coast is that a bunch of deals are popping up that he might not even know about. And he might get the alert because he has these great relationships, but he might not see it in time because he's got all these other priorities of the people literally right in front of him. So again, I'm not going to advocate that. I'm not going to say that business travel isn't good, but if you're hinging your entire company growth and your entire go-to-market strategy off those star people, you can get in trouble pretty fast. So it makes me think of, I'm going to take a step back for a second. Why do we travel? So I just told you kind of like the highlights, but I'm going to give you a story really quickly about a client that actually proved that travel makes a lot of sense. They were dealing with a global parts manufacturer that sells into manufacturing companies. And they were probably one of the top brands in the world. They're probably great reputation. People trust them just as a brand itself. And the sales team is really strong. What they do, they were really good at getting meetings with the people at the organizations that they're trying to sell to early and get in with a process that you've probably heard from me is really strong, is engaging and help shaping the criteria so that your win rate goes up. I covered this in last week's episode and supporting materials. But in this particular case, this global fixture manufacturer, they spoke with a client that they knew they could serve really well, and they were, I guess, probably would have been the top candidate if there was an RFP happening at the time. But, government, large organizations, they move slowly. So they said to the sales team, hey, we really like what you do, but we're not really launching a procurement cycle for another 18 months. So we'll come back to us then. What do most people do at that time? They say, okay, well, I'll see you in 18 months. Put a reminder in the CRM, reach out to so-and-so 13 months out, what have you. But what they did instead is they got together a bunch of facts, figures, insights that their buyer could use that could help shape that criteria. And this buyer was so incredibly grateful and getting all of that information. And they didn't give it with stipulations. They didn't say, hey, we're going to give you this information only if you include us in the RFP. But what it did is made them absolutely a shoo-in for the shortlist. And they ultimately got some great results out of that. So again, travel is great. It builds trust. And being local, why this company did very well is they were local to their buyer. So their plant and their buyer's plant were very, very close to each other. And so they were given that kind of local leg up. But that said, that doesn't always win, because there's other companies that come from all over the globe that do business locally with maybe some of the people that you want to sell to. It happens. But we can't deny that travel is so, so important. Even at that $1,200 to $1,400 per business trip, you still absolutely want to do it. But policy makes it tough. What do you do? I heard a story recently about a woman who crossed the border, or attempted to cross the border with some commercial material she was going to send to a trade show within the US. So she's coming from Canada, she's crossing the border with trade show material, going to stop in Blaine, Washington, and then send to the trade show that she was going to in 2 weeks. What happened is that she made a little error, sent, a bunch of commercial material that she claimed. So she declared it at the border, but the word is that going through the specific pre-check lane with commercial materials is actually against the rules of the program. So what happened is that they denied her entry, and not only that, they revoked her pre-check status. So at that point, she kind of said, okay, well, that was surprising. That was something not really exciting. And then she inquired, she said, well, I've got a trade show in 2 weeks. I have to be in the US in 2 weeks. I understand I don't get the pre-check anymore, but will I have trouble traveling now? And absolutely. They said to her, you're very likely going to have issues because you broke the rules. You got your thing revoked. And now what does she do? I haven't followed up on the story. I'm going to follow up on it. But can you imagine what that would be like? You're just trying to do your job. You're just trying to do everything you can to do the right thing and, declare your goods, drive through the border, send it from the US to the US so it doesn't have to cross customs without your knowledge. I've done this before, like a million times. And then what happens? Now you miss your trade show. Now you can't go. You have to send somebody else in your place. What happens if that one person was the only person who was good at that was good for that particular trade show? You're in trouble. So travel has an incredible amount of risk. And if you hinge your entire go-to-market strategy on being in the right place, literally, physically, at the right time, that's going to be a challenge. So instead, what we do is democratize this process by going virtually. If all you can do is travel and meet people in person, you're going to have a good business. But if you want to have a great business and support a team that's bigger than just a handful of people, you're going to need a system that produces this type of information, builds this type of trust on a recurring basis. And for that, you're going to have to do that while you're not physically in the presence of your buyer and their stakeholders. So the way that we do that here at Outbound SOS is we track digital footprints that mimic the same level of interaction that you get from a physical trip. And we track all of the things that I would do, say, who the people I'd meet with, the topics of conversation, and we track all of those things on your buyers. So people that you would sell to or that I would sell to. And we map out what is the process, how can we find the stuff digitally, how can we build that information digitally, how can we share insights from anywhere in the world so that you can build that trust, hold that relationship without being at the whim of some crazy laws and crazy world events that make travel so much tougher. So you know it, I know it. This is the best way. This is the way that the future of business is going to be. And I'm really hoping that you have a strategy to tackle this effectively and with great success. So if you have a travel story, anything that you want to share about how you make the most out of your travel, I'd love to hear from you. So drop me a DM or comment, and hope maybe you'll be on another episode of The Signal. Thank you. Bye-bye.